I'm going to bring out our first guest. Yeah. She
Let's do
is
it.
a former Olympian, an Ironman champion, a PhD epidemiologist. She is the author of The Champion Mindset. Please welcome Joanna Zeiger.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here. You guys look like you have fun. So hopefully I can have some fun with you. Maybe I need some of those mango bites.
Yeah, I think you need some. You need some
Yes.
mango.
I need
mango
some of that
bites. Mango bites.
I was kind of joking back in the green room that where's the dish of red M&Ms? But maybe we should have had a dish of mango bites.
I think that's the new red M&M.
Yeah.
Also, for everybody tuning in, the Wowee hotline is now open. So if you have a question about cannabis and pain management or exercise routines or just want to share a fun activity you do while you're high, join us on the Zoom.
Okay, so to give a little background, Joanna is a former Olympian, which is amazing. And then while competing to defend your Ironman title, you were involved in a serious bike accident, and so you sought out cannabis as a form of pain management, which brought us to where we are today. And that's why you're such a cool guest and why you're an expert in that area. So I guess first question really is, what was it about cannabis that stood out from traditionally, prescribed medicine for pain?
Desperation, basically. I was really actually, I wouldn't say it was anti-cannabis, but it had a lot of stigma for me. I was working at the time at the University of Colorado Boulder at the Institute for Behavioral Genetics, and we studied drug abuse in adolescents and young adults. And one of the drugs that we studied was marijuana. So it was just seen as this like really bad thing. Of course, you don't want adolescents using marijuana. We know that it can be harmful to developing brain and other kinds of adverse effects. So it really, and we were seeing a lot of kids that were very troubled. Apart from drug abuse, they had a lot of conduct disorder. At that time, the gateway theory was the one that was espoused, which has now been debunked. And the gateway theory is that if you use cannabis, it's going to lead to stronger drug use. That has not been shown to be true. So that was the first stigma. And the second stigma was I was a professional athlete for a long time, and cannabis was banned in all forms. The rules have changed since then. So, and I was mortified to ask my doctor for a prescription for cannabis. So this was before it was legal recreationally. So basically I had 3 strikes against it. And I couldn't wrap my head around using cannabis. My husband was like, you've got to try it. You've tried all other things and you're not sleeping, you've got nausea, you've got pain. When cannabis became legal recreationally in Colorado, it lifted one of the barriers. I didn't need a prescription anymore. So I marched into the dispensary and I said, well, I've got pain, I can't sleep, I'm nauseous, I have no appetite, what do I need? And they gave me a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things they told me to use was a patch. Put it on the inside of the leg, it is going to be amazing. I have never been that high in my entire life. Nobody told me you need to cut the patch into pieces. So I had used, I don't even know what the dose was. It's been a few years, but man, I was flying. I mean, it was actually unpleasant. I was too high. But I'm a researcher and I actually slept for many hours. And so I was able to look beyond the fact that I was too high and did not enjoy that experience and focused on the fact that I slept. And just realized I had to change the dosage, that I don't need that much of it. And over the years, I've just, experimented with different combinations of THC and CBD and different routes of administration and different amounts and microdosing and new products. I'm not afraid to be a human guinea pig.
Now, with so much success
I was just going to say, I love that you debunked the gateway thing, because that's always been one of my biggest pet peeves when talking about marijuana, is that as somebody who has used it for a very long time, I don't do any other, I've tried other drugs in the past, but like it has not been a gateway. If anything, it's been a gate, because it's so delightful and it doesn't have any adverse side effects on me because I've figured out my dosage. So it doesn't make me desire anything else, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm good with this.
It's enough. Like you're a good stopping right there.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, exactly.
I feel the same way. You know, I just, I mean, first of all, I don't like being too high at all. You know, maybe a little buzz is okay, but too much is, I just don't enjoy that. But you're right. It just, you know, it calms you down. It makes you, I mean, especially when you have severe chronic pain like I do, it really eases the suffering part of it so that, you know, you can go on with your life and do things and, you know, feel like you are living a somewhat normal life, even though your body is rebelling against you.
Yeah, I mean, now, do you feel like people should still try Western medicine for pain relief first? Like, do you see cannabis as a last resort option, or do you think that's like a good place to start?
I see cannabis as being part of a multimodal approach to health and wellness. I sort of had the hope that, gee, I'm going to take cannabis and that I'll be able to, you know, either get off all my other medicines or reduce them, or, you know, something magical is going to happen using cannabis. And I was very disappointed to find out that it isn't this magic that is the be all end all, that I could get off my other medications. I have a genetic disease. In addition to having the chronic pain, I have several diseases going on at one time. I have a genetic disease that affects almost every organ system. And I've got chronic pain from the bike accident because I've got damaged nerves that run between the ribs. So I've got a lot of different things going on. And that would be a lot of heavy lifting for one thing, for cannabis, when, you know, I've got so many ailments and so many organ systems and so many things affected. And the thing that really changed my view on cannabis is when I went to a medical conference and listened to a medical doctor speak about cannabis. And one of the things he said was that it doesn't mean that cannabis failed if you still need to take an opioid or if you still take your other medications. Maybe you're using a lot less of it, or your pain is better controlled in conjunction with those. And so I look at cannabis as being part of the bigger picture, and that you may be using it, you know, with a healthy diet and exercise and sleep, and you know, maybe you still need an opioid here and there, but you don't need nearly as much as you used to. So it's just something. It's not the cure-all, but it's something that you can add in that can make your life a lot better. So I don't see it as being a last resort, but I also don't see it as being the only resort.
I love that because I personally, cannabis has helped me a lot with mental health stuff, but I'm still on medication for mental health. I still go to therapy, but it's like this added little bonus that sort of adds to the mix of everything. And so I think that's such a great way to describe it, because nothing is ever really a cure-all, right? It's always like a combination of stuff that gets you to your best place that you can get to. So I know you described finding the right amount of cannabis as for relief as an inverted U. Can you explain exactly what you mean by that, the inverted U theory?
Yeah, so, and this is actually true for a lot of pharmacological agents, that they have this inverted U action. And so if you're on one side of the U, let's call it the left side, and like, let's say we have the dosage of like 0 THC up to, you know, 100 milligrams of THC, and we have this U that's starting at 0 going to 100. Well, you know, at 0 or 1 milligram, you're not going to really have much of a therapeutic effect. And if you take 100 milligrams of CBD, or of THC, most people are going to have some kind of adverse reaction. That's a lot of THC. The optimal dose is going to be somewhere in the middle, and that's going to be different for everybody. Some people are going to be on the lower end, some people are going to be on the upper end. But what's interesting is in the studies that we've done, we've shown that cannabis both reduces anxiety, but it also causes anxiety. And I think that part of it is because of that inverted U, that if you are taking the right amount of it, it can reduce your anxiety. But if you take too much of it, it could actually make your anxiety worse, because maybe you're hallucinating or you're too high and it doesn't feel good. And now all of a sudden that makes you more anxious. And so one drug can have multiple actions depending on the dose that you take.
Yeah, I think, David, I don't want to speak for you, but I've definitely been on the wrong side of the U.
I've been on the right side of the U.
Oopsies.
It's not pleasant. Adverse effects is a very It's a very calm way to say freaking the hell out.
Yeah, but when you do find, like you said, that right part of the you, it really does feel somewhat miraculous because you're like, whoa, this is like just, I don't know. I think and I think it can take years and a lot of experimenting to find that perfect place.
And
It
because
feels
our
like
body
flow
is
state.
changing, it is a flow state. And, because our bodies are always changing, where you are on that you may change as well. You might have a week or a month where your anxiety is worse, or your pain is worse, or you're not sleeping as well. And you may need a little bit more to help you through that time period. And then you might have the next month, you're feeling better and you don't need quite as much. The goal always is to be on the lowest therapeutic dose if you're using it medically. And of course, talk to your doctor before you start using cannabis to make sure it doesn't negatively interact with any other medications you're taking and that it's right for you, because it isn't right for everybody.
Definitely, yeah. It's worth it to figure it out how it works for you. Joanna, do you feel like taking some calls?
Of course, if anybody has questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Yeah, I think we have our first call coming in now.
Mom, is that you? No, just kidding.
It's actually my mom.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello, what's your name?
Hi. I'm Jennifer. Hi, guys.
Hi,
I
Jennifer.
have a question.
Hi.
I wanted to know if there's a particular strain that is best for pain management.
So I think it's going to really be probably different for everybody, and it's going to also depend upon where you live and what you can get. The difference between sativa and indica is becoming more blurred as time goes on, and as people are, doing genetic mixing of the plants. A lot of studies have shown that have broken down the genetics of the plant, that sativas and indicas are becoming more and more alike. In terms of ratios of CBD to THC, in the studies that we've done, we've found that people that have used a combined THC and CBD had the best relief from pain. But in terms of what that ratio is, that we don't know. We're trying to figure that out. And so for you, it would probably mean experimenting a little bit, starting with a higher dose of CBD, a lower dose of THC, and then working your way up from there. So the mantra in the world of cannabis is always start low, go slow.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling.
So,
That's so important.
Joanna, I know you
feel like
competed-
finding your
Yeah.
so important with your relationship to cannabis.
It is. Finding that optimal dose is, I'm an endurance athlete and I do a lot of coaching. And I liken it to, I coach people who do Ironman, and that's an event that could take anywhere from 10 to 13 or 14 hours, depending upon, how fast an athlete is. And one of the most important things is nutrition, because if you don't get your nutrition right, then you're not gonna have enough fuel to get through the race. And finding out your optimal nutrition is one of the most difficult parts of long distance racing. And it's so much like cannabis, like finding that optimal dose to make you feel good is very difficult, and it's going to be so variable from person to person. And it's very reminiscent to me of that search of finding your perfect nutritional plan for an Ironman.
Yeah. All right, I think we have another caller. Yeah? We have someone else. Hello.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi there.
What's your name?
my name is Dot, and I'm calling in from Ridgewood, New York.
Cool.
Hi, Dot.
What's your question?
What's your question?
So I am a professional dancer, and I'm constantly thinking about muscular recovery. What would you advise as far as like things to ingest, things to put on topically? Thoughts?
Great question.
Well, I mean, topicals, so we did a study in athletes, and topicals were very helpful for muscle and joint pain. So that's something that you might want to try. And again, we found that combination THC CBD was very helpful for muscle pain. You could take that as a tincture. As a dancer, you probably don't want to inhale your cannabis because you don't want to have a negative effect on your lungs. So you could try edibles or tinctures along with the topical. And again, I can't tell you like, gee, you should start at this dose because we just don't have that information. But you want to start at a low dose and see if that works for you. And if it doesn't, then increase your dose slowly from there. But I think topicals would be very helpful for you.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
So I know that you competed in the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Do you have any thoughts on the Olympic ban of THC, and do you think that might change at any point?
So the World Anti-Doping Agency is the governing body that overlooks doping for sports that are in the Olympics, that are, you know, it's basically WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, is like kind of this umbrella. And then all of these national governing bodies from all over the world are underneath WADA. And WADA is one of the governing bodies that does testing for all of the countries who are involved with that. And WADA has banned THC. Well, sorry, they have not banned it. It's banned in competition, but it's not banned out of competition. And it's not banned completely. It's what's called a threshold drug. So if they take your blood and they find it below a certain threshold, then they won't call that an adverse analytical finding. But they find it above that threshold, then you'll get flagged. CBD is not tested. So CBD is something that athletes can use without worry, as long as they're sourcing it from a reputable place. The information that they are mostly using for why they put that on the ban list is from a paper that was published in 2010. I think we've moved along quite a bit since then, and that's antiquated information. I do not think that cannabis should be banned for athletes. I think that, particularly because a lot of the benefits that we showed, we did a study a few years ago called the Athlete Peace Survey, and PEACE stands for pain, exercise, and cannabis experience. And the top 4 things that athletes said that cannabis helped them with was pain, anxiety, calm, and I can't remember the last one, but sleeping better. And you can get that from things like ibuprofen and other things that athletes are already using that might not have the safety profile as cannabis. And so people are already using things that cannabis are doing. And I don't think that cannabis necessarily has a direct performance enhancing effect. So I think it should be removed from the anti-doping list, and athletes should be allowed to use it. That's my thought.
Yeah, I don't know a single person who has been like, I ran faster because I was stoned. Like, I think if anything, it would hinder for some people, but
yeah, and it'll make you a little bit slow. It can aid in recovery and it can help sleep, but people are taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories or taking Ambien. I mean, they're taking drugs that are not as safe to do the same thing. So why not just put cannabis on there and get people off of benzodiazepines and opioids and other drugs that could have a lot more adverse effects on athletes?
Totally.
Agree.
Totally. I think we have one more caller, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? I'm Timothy Theory, I'm a professional wrestler. I had a question actually that kind of related to your last question, but it was along the lines of in WWE they have a wellness policy where they test for cannabis and people lose their jobs over it. And like you were saying with the last question, I don't really feel like athletes and performers should really be getting tested for, especially if it's a better alternative than using pills. And I was wondering what your opinion on that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anything to reduce usage of pills, I think that that's positive. And particularly for athletes that are coming out of sports like the NHL and the NFL, where they're really beat up and they're given pills like candy and they're given injections in the middle of games and they're coming out very addicted and they end up turning to cannabis to get off the pills and to help with the addiction issues. Well, why not just start off with the cannabis in the first place and bypass all of this middle part that's so difficult for everybody involved.
I feel the same about that. Like with wrestling particularly, it's it's like the equivalent of getting hit by a car going 30 miles an hour once you get done with the match, and that's most average matches. And there's people out there doing crazy things, and their brains get kind of rattled. They get they get scattered brained, and sometimes you see people smoking after the match, and they can kind of relax and not have to be on something like opiates that's really addictive and could potentially make things worse for them. I feel like so.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is there are some early studies that show that CBD could be neuroprotective as well. So for people in sports where they're being hit in the head on a regular basis, like you mentioned, in a lot of the professional sports, like in the NFL, they're getting TBIs, and of course there's just so much around concussions and brain injuries, and cannabis can be very helpful for that.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree with that.
Thank you so much. So I actually have someone who I guess couldn't get on the Zoom, but they texted my friend a question. Now they're texting me.
All right, that's a roundabout way.
That's a roundabout way. Okay, so this person says, I have found that at one point in time, a certain amount of weed was very effective in anxiety and pain reduction, but over time, the same amount of weed started to have the opposite effect and produced more anxiety and sometimes even more physical discomfort. I have found my happy medium again after many years of not imbibing in any way at all, very small doses, CBD. But I was wondering, why might that occur? That it's at one point it was amazing, but suddenly it had an adverse effect. Is that part of the U maybe, or?
Well, I think it could be
happening.
Well, people build tolerance. I know that can happen where the dose that you're using before is no longer effective, and then you need to increase the dose to get the same effect that you once had. In terms of using the same dose and then having it make you feel anxious and having adverse effects, that can happen. And one of the more common things I've heard happening is that people develop something called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, where they have vomiting and excruciating abdominal pain. I haven't heard of what this particular person had, but it is not completely unheard of to be using it for some time and then all of a sudden have negative consequences. And then you need to go off cannabis. Some people never can find a reset. Every time they use it, it makes them feel bad. And for some people, they're able to reset and find a dose that works.
Joanna, this was extremely illuminating for myself personally. I'm sure people at home learned a lot. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you want to plug or share, any last thoughts before you go?
Well, you can visit our website, cannaresearchfoundation.org. We do outcome studies looking at how cannabis affects various populations, looking at adverse effects and benefits. And if you'd like to make a donation, we'll happily accept it, because we want to be able to continue to do our work so that we can help you, the viewer, hone in on the best dosage for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joanna.